As a coach for worship ministry school, I've seen this common thread among successful students and ministry leaders. They are organized. And before you come after me with any excuses about your Enneagram or your Myers-Briggs personality type, I want to say I think being organized can be a learned behavior. I was not always organized, and now I am. And I think that once you learn it and once you implement these strategies, you'll see great improvement in your ministry as well as your personal life. My name is Adam Baranek, and as well as being a coach for worship ministry school, I'm a full-time worship arts pastor in the suburbs of Chicago, and I am passionate about using systems. At first, you might hear that word and you might think of being uptight or maybe being restricted, but I think there is really more freedom found when using systems. And this is a short form video, so it's going to be a pretty quick overview, but the deep dive of these topics take over an hour and a half in the Systems for Success Masterclass that's available to worship ministry school students. But since we don't have a ton of time, let's just get into it. There are 3 assets I want to talk about that we just really have to take care of, and that's time, money, and materials. And I believe that our God is a God of systems, and there are numerous examples of this, but there are also examples of stewardship that I think is really important that we adhere to. And being organized allows us to follow God's hope for us to be good stewards of the things that He's entrusted to us. Today, we're just going to look at 2 things, time and material management. But the basis of everything that we're going to be talking about, it has to be built on a foundation. So here's a breakdown from the top down, the big picture that drives the nitty-gritty details. So in order, they would be missions, values, and goals is the top tier. And then there is planning and prioritization in the next tier. And then lastly, there's task management, calendaring, and notes. So here's what all that means. You have to start with the understanding of your calling or your mission. And you really have to find out where you're headed before you start going there. You know, once you've spent time discerning what that is, you can move on to the next thing and determine your values. The values are what drive the goals that you make in order to accomplish your mission and fulfill your calling. Planning allows you to form some details around how you want to accomplish said goals, and prioritization is the filter through which things you decide what to do. Task management, that is taking care of the small, the practical to-dos and all those things that move you further along towards your goals. And notes are simply how you keep track of all that information. So once you've done some soul searching about who you are, where you're headed, you can jump into the practical application of the systems. And it seems that there's just no end of us getting bombarded with more and more distractions. So that's why it's so important to limit your inputs, you know, the things that you subscribe to and give attention to and give your energy to, and focus on what really matters. I think a huge part of time management is the prioritization piece of learning what requires your attention and what to say no to. Time, just like money, is a gift that we have, and it has to be stewarded well in order for us to make our greatest kingdom impact. God cares how you spend your time. And while there isn't anything we can do to create more time, we can at least be more efficient and more effective with the time that we are given. I want to give you an example. Consider a worship team rehearsal. It has a band of 6 people and 4 tech team members. And if you go into that rehearsal and you didn't spend 5 minutes of your own time taking care of something that now takes up 5 minutes of rehearsal, and we can just use putting out microphones, preparing the stage, whatever, as an example, you didn't waste 5 minutes of people's time at rehearsal in that example. You just wasted 50 minutes of people's time, because each of those people present count for 5 minutes of lost time that could have been used for running a song again, praying for one another, or just, being done 5 minutes early and letting everyone get back to their families a bit sooner. Now, regarding saying no, this is just so powerful, and it's crazy how much of a difference this makes. And if you really want to explore this more, I highly recommend the book Essentialism. It is super helpful, but the main idea here can be summed up in what either the author of that book or maybe Carey Nieuwhof said. But I remember your email inbox is filled with other people's agendas. Saying yes to commitments that don't move you forward in your mission or towards your goals actually prevent you from moving towards those goals. And of course, we don't want to be stingy with our time, but saying yes to everything will make it so that you either don't accomplish the things that you need to, so inevitably letting people down in an effort to not let people down, or working lots of extra hours. And that would mean that you don't have time for your family or for your friends or to spend any time resting. There's a really hard truth, but there is not unlimited time. My friend just told me this past week that if they could have one superpower, it would be that they would not need to sleep so that they could have more time to do things. And he is an Enneagram number 7, and this is at the end of a 12-hour day helping friends with some house remodeling. And as honorable as those intentions are, that's just not how the world works. God created us to do meaningful work, and we simply cannot do that without rest. So before I talk more about rest, I want to mention the single greatest resource that I've found on work and Sabbath, and that is Garden City by John Mark Comer. And if you seriously only get one thing out of this video, it's that you read that book. Or if you have it, reread it. I think it is just a super important part of time management. Everything else is good and God-honoring and fulfilling the mission, but rest and Sabbath, this is the reward and the fuel to continue. God's design for our lives is described in the garden. Our goal should not be to avoid work, but to find fulfilling work, that we can enjoy the fruits of our labor and rest in God's grace. I think the rest of the world is beginning to realize this a little bit more. So in the Industrial Revolution, as people in factories became a little bit more than cogs in the machine, being totally overworked, and I think making mistakes became more common. And I do believe that more companies now are recognizing that for workers to do a quality job, they have to have sufficient breaks as well as sufficient vacation time. And at least in the churches that I've been a part of, they've all done just such a wonderful job of recognizing that the best work is done when a person is at their best, spiritually, mentally, well-rested, and in good health. So I do pray that all of you are in organizations that understand that God created us with a need for rest. Another part of time management I think that will just make a really big impact on you is the scheduling and task management. I take time every day, every week, every quarter, and every year to review my calendar. So every day takes about 5 minutes at the beginning of my day just to make small adjustments if needed. At the beginning of the week, I probably spend 15 to 20 minutes, and the yearly review and planning, that is done with my team, and it can take up to half a day. And maybe it seems counterintuitive, but spending time planning your time saves you time. So take the time to actually put things in your calendar and guard your time, especially devotional, family, personal growth. These are the most important things, but they can be pushed out by what seems urgent. So another book recommendation, Tyranny, the Urgent. That one's a short one. Definitely check that out. So for task management, both at Churchfront as well as my church, I use a program called Asana, and another coach at Churchfront, his name is Luke. He does a great in-depth lesson on the program, But using any kind of task management software does a few things for you. One, it keeps you focused. As a task comes into your email inbox, it pops into your head, or someone comes into your office and asks you for something, you can manage it. Instead of ruining your flow by doing it right away or just simply forgetting it, you can write it down, or I guess type it in, and decide when it's best for you to do that. And then you can continue on with your current focus. You may have heard of batch tasking, the idea of putting similar tasks together. And I think that's a really fantastic way to keep your brain in the same space, because switching between a bunch of different headspaces takes a lot of energy and time to get into a productive and effective flow again. And then for notes, I like Evernote as well as Apple Notes. I think Apple Notes have really stepped up their game recently. So when I think of material management, I think of both physical and digital assets. Organizing this stuff is another one of those things that it takes time up front, but saves so much more time than it uses for the long term. I love using this example of the tool closet at my church. When I first arrived, this room was a bit disastrous. Random screws, bolts, and nuts and washers, all in those big rusty Folgers coffee cans, and so much of it tightly packed. By the time I found what I needed, it would have been faster to run to the store and just buy what I needed, even though it was probably already in the space and we already had it on hand. This is why there's so much stuff in that room. It became the better choice to just buy it again and shove the extra haphazardly into the space. But then God sent us a man who used his gifting and skill set to completely organize this room. And I'm talking tubs with labels on them, custom built shelving in containers. This space that I totally dreaded going into now is a space that I could walk into, find what I needed, and move on with the project at hand. That's what I'm talking about. This guy spent a lot of time organizing the tool closet. But now, when I'm working on a project and I need a specific piece of hardware, I can quickly, easily find it. So similarly, for my team, I did the same thing to our stage closet. So volunteers who don't live there every day like I do, they can quickly and without frustration or wasting time find the cable, the in-ears, stand, whatever it is that they need. So those are some of the examples of how to organize physical spaces. More than ever though, we have digital notes, files, documents, media, stuff that's stored online or on computers. And these also have to be organized well if you want your life to be easy, and more importantly, if you want the life of your volunteers to be easier. I think one of the best things that I've done for my ministry team is create a website that my team can access, and it hosts all of the procedures that they would ever need to access in one place. So rather than sending documents several times through email, volunteers needing to dig through email or their search history or bookmarks to find these things, they only have to remember or bookmark a single website. And I did this all for free through Google Sites. So I want to show you the website that I created for my team that has everything that they could possibly need. So you can see here that we have the home page, and it has these gathering dates when we were getting together pre-COVID to discuss a book as part of a way to disciple my team. Also on the front page of the website, we have a worship arts team handbook. So that just goes through what it means to be on the worship team and expectations, as well as a Sunday set list playlist. So that's just a Spotify playlist of the songs that we're going to be singing that's accessible to anyone on the team, anyone at the church, as well as an ACC worship songs playlist. So ACC, Arlington Countryside Church worship songs playlist. Any song that we do as a worship team is on this Spotify playlist. So even if someone hasn't joined the team yet and they're considering it, they can go and listen to all the songs that we do as a church. So at the top, I have some different drop-down menus. In the musicians tab here, we have role and expectations. So here we have what's expected of a musician before rehearsal, during rehearsal, after rehearsal, before, during, and after services. Projection and audio, these have a lot more things going on because they are tech roles. So there's a lot of details that they have to keep track of. And rather than asking people to memorize the entire way that they serve and what to do in every single scenario, I have some pages that they can go to. So on Sunday morning, they can come here, they can use this checklist to make sure that they've hit all of the marks for Sunday morning to go smoothly. And a lot of people, they have this down, but it's more of a reminder in case they forget something. I have the same thing for audio. So under projectionist, we have a lot more for audio. They have access to the stage plots that I create. They have access to the audio patching sheet. And they have access to some different things like our sound system, how it works, how to begin it, shut it down. So there's just so many things that you can do with a website like this. It's free, like I said, through Google Sites, but doing something like this for your team will just make a huge difference in your life as well as the life of your volunteers. And I think they just so appreciate you taking the time to put something like this together for them. It's also going to save you a ton of time in having to answer questions as people have them. You can just have them refer to something like this website. So I think that this is probably the one of the best tools that I've created to be organized for my teams. I hope I've inspired you to take some action to become more organized today. And I'm going to leave some resources in the description for you. So if you're interested in joining our program for worship and tech ministry leaders, you can go to worshipministryschool.com and schedule a free strategy session with one of our coaches. Also, let us know in the comments below, what do you do to stay organized and manage your time?